Getting this conversation is absolutely key to ensuring that people can maybe access the services they need, but more importantly, find their voice and really get a chance to ask for the help perhaps that they need. I'm joined now by Victoria Freeman. Victoria is a social worker. She is in private practice, but she's also with the eating disorder clinics at Toronto General. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
One of the things that we talked about, and I don't think a lot of people think about it this way, is that anorexia, bulimia, eating disorders, they are a type of mental illness and a deadly type at that.
Absolutely. Anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, they lead in terms of mortality rate for all mental illnesses. And there's a common misconception out there that it's a choice, or it's about vanity, or it's a diet gone wrong, and that's absolutely not true. People who are suffering don't choose this. It's a very painful illness to have, and it comes with a wide array of psychological, physiological, and social consequences. People can have cardiac issues, skin, hair, and teeth issues, blood pressure issues, electrolyte imbalances, social isolation, cognitive impairments. It is a true illness that affects the entire system.
And how do you, as someone who loves or cares for someone who's going through this, how do you figure out a way to detect it early? How can you go, okay, wait a minute, this is not normal for this individual. Something's not right here.
Absolutely. Early detection is very important. The sooner we can detect an eating disorder, the more likely it is someone can succeed in treatment and live their life without having to think about it again. But there's another common misconception that you can see eating disorders, that it's a certain type of person or a certain type of body that's suffering, and that's not true either. People of all different body shapes can have an eating disorder, and all cultures, classes, and genders as well. Men and women both suffer from eating disorders. So it's important to look out for sudden and enduring changes in your loved one. So if they suddenly are more rigid about what they're eating or what they're choosing to eat, if they're becoming secretive about their meals, if they're using the washroom after every single meal, if they're beginning to isolate themselves socially or avoid situations around food, or you notice higher than usual body image distress or distortions around how they think they look, these are all warning signs where you might want to go up to someone and say, hey, I noticed something's a little bit different. Is there anything I can do to help, or is there something you want to talk about?
And help is important. How do you, as a family member, try to help? I mean, especially, let's say, this is a teenager. A young teenager, and you're not in a position, or even an adult, an adult member of your family, and you're really not in a position to tell them what to do. How do you encourage them to figure out a way? And they need food, they need to eat to live. So I mean, how do you work around that? How do you make it happen?
It's so tough because you want to respect people's autonomy, but more and more in research and in clinical practice, we're finding that family and friends and supports are vital. Eating disorders are not something you recover from on your own. It takes a support system and a team. So being willing to come up to someone and say, hey, I think something's going on, and starting that conversation is very important. And reaching out to community supports as well, so that you can become more educated for your loved ones, is important too. So there's organizations like NEDIC where you can gain information about who to connect to. They're the National Eating Disorders Information Center, or NEED, the National Initiative for Eating Disorders here in Canada, or even Sheena's Place here in Toronto is a wonderful support for groups and learning about skills and educational topics that can support people who are suffering and the families themselves.
All right, Victoria Freeman, such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. All right, back to you, George.